Today, we're gonna be talking about one of the best purchases that I've ever made for my videography business. It's literally changed the game for me when it comes to color grading, and it honestly feels like a cheat code. And the best part is, one of you guys is gonna receive a free license courtesy of Dehancer Pro for your NLE of choice. All you have to do is subscribe, like this video, and comment your favorite feature about Dehancer. Now make sure to stick to the end of this video after the tutorial for the full details of the giveaway and how you can win. Now, Dehancer has been an absolute staple for me and my color grading workflow for over a year now. I have absolutely loved using it. So when Dehancer reached out to me about making a full formal review of their product, I was stoked. And that was part of the reason for the giveaway. Since I've already been using the product for so long, I thought I would gift one of my subscribers a Dehancer license. And so thank you, Dehancer, for doing that. You should know, no money was exchanged, and they're not telling me what to say on this review. It's not sponsored either. Now, if you use code Aaron at checkout, you'll get 10% off any Dehancer products with the exception of their iOS app. Now, like I've said, I've used this product for well over a year. I purchased it with my own money, and that brings me to my first point about what makes Dehancer so special. Dehancer's value is unmatched. If you look at it just from a price standpoint, yeah, it's expensive, but you have to consider the fact of what you're getting. You're getting something equivalent to like 80 different LUTs, film grain overlays, and all kinds of other tools. Now that's an oversimplification because it's not film grain overlays, it's actually like calculations being done to weave the grain into the image, which is a point that I'm gonna talk about next. The film grain is so good on Dehancer. I'm a bit of a film grain junkie. I would always look at like, what overlays do movies use? I bought Cinegrain overlays because I heard the movie Her used them. And then when I finally found like what most movies use, I realized I can't use that. Live grain is what most Hollywood studios use, and it is very expensive. I think if you go to their website, you have to like reach out to them and they give you a custom quote. And once I got Dehancer, I realized how good it is. It works so well with the image. It does things with the highlights that I can't really describe, but it softens them and makes them look more film-like. And you can even soften the image to make it look more film-like within the grain panel. I have zero complaints, and it's exclusively what I use for film grain now. I love it. Now my last point is the looks that you can get with Dehancer. As an independent filmmaker, I'm not a professional colorist. And that's not to say that you can't be a professional colorist and use Dehancer, but what I'm saying is you can have access to so many different looks all through Dehancer without having to have the knowledge of certain color grading techniques. Now that's not to say I don't still use the tools within DaVinci Resolve. However, this is just another tool for me to create unique, really cool, sometimes filmic looks with Dehancer. Now, I know it can't all be sunshine and rainbows, so let's talk about a few things that I would love to see changed and some updates from Dehancer. So to start, the cons. We are going to talk about two minor inconveniences that would be nice if Dehancer would change it, but really it's not the end of the world. And so, one more, I'm going to burn my finger. Oh, no, I didn't get it. There we go. So really the first thing I would say is I would love to be able to rearrange some of the items. There are some items that I frequently use, there's some items that I sometimes use, and there's some items that I never touch. And so I don't know if that's even possible, but that would be nice to be able to rearrange them, or if they were organized in a way that it wasn't as cluttered. It seems overwhelming sometimes with how extensive all the options are. Another would be the startup settings. Every time I put Dehancer on a node, it automatically adds a film emulation and it automatically adds film grain. And ideally, I would like to start with 0 settings so that I can build the look from there, because I almost always change it from those settings. So another minor thing. Going into other things that might actually mess with your workflow would be, one, sometimes things slow down a little bit when it comes to grain and halation, it's a little taxing on your computer. I have an M1 Mac. It's understandable, but you should be aware of the fact that it might slow your computer down a bit. The optimization is actually decent in comparison to other plugins that I've used, but you have to be aware of that, and it can slow things down, and the render times will be slower if you use their film grain. So yeah, something to keep in mind. And then the last one really is the Rec 709 LUTs. I think tend to have some issues every now and then. So if they were able to optimize these Rec 709 LUTs to be a little more forgiving in the highlight roll off and a little more natural looking, I think that would be really nice. I still use them and I've found ways to work with them, but sometimes it is better to use Rec 709 before going to Dehancer. And so you will see in all my examples, I do use the Rec 709 LUT and they work out. But especially with RGB lights, like you'll see on the screen now, it's sometimes an issue. So something to be aware of. So like I mentioned, most of these things are minor inconveniences. They're really not like big deal breakers, and I've also consistently used Dehancer as a part of my workflow and color grading. So I truly have loved it, and there's very few things that I have to say that are complaints about it, but it's worth mentioning some things so maybe Dehancer can work on them. And also, if you have a slower system and you're considering Dehancer, it might not be the time because you might not be able to run it very efficiently, and it might really slow you down. And so, all that being said, we will go ahead and move on to the tutorial. So to start, let's convert it here. We'll choose our camera, shot on the Fujifilm X-H2S in F-Log2. So with this scene, I feel like it's to me, it feels very Indiana Jones. I really wanted to emulate film in the film process. So generally, like a movie would be shot on one of these 4 film stocks. There's a few others, but these are the ones that we have here that are movie film stocks. And so I tend to lean towards the tungsten ones. So let's enable that. And already it's softened things up, and it to me looks really good already. Next, the thing that to me is the next best step would be to go to your print. And one of the most popular ones is this Kodak 2383. And I usually like this one a lot. The other popular one is this Fujifilm. It's another motion picture print film. But let's go with Kodak, and it's pretty pushed and contrasty, and so we can go up to this film developer now and pull some of that contrast out. I generally like to do any of that here within DaVinci's tools, and so we'll pull down the highlights. Like I said, I generally like to do, and I also like to boost a little bit of saturation and do my color correction here. And I mean, I think we're already in a really cool spot. And so if we were to get rid of the print film, then that's what we have. This kind of just sells that film look a little more. And then this would be the print film without Kodak Vision 3. And so I think this already looks really cool. Let's do some color density, which really brings saturation to skin tones without like boosting other saturation or the oranges and reds more so than like any other vibrant colors. So I think that looks really good. But next, let's dive into some of the other cool tools. And so we have Color Head, which I generally stick to these tools here for any color correction, but you can really emulate the film process with the Color Head tools there. And the next one that I absolutely love is film grain. And so if we were really trying to sell this film look, we obviously want some film grain on this. And I like to start, my general process is starting with one of these presets, which they've added in the most recent update, and then going to the custom settings and manipulating it after that. And so I generally like to go down on the size a little bit. And if we are emulating, you know, an indoor shot, we'll have a little more grain here. Film resolution, it has such a pleasing effect on softening the image without like it looking too blurred or anything. I really enjoy how that looks too. And so we have control over the shadows, the midtones, the highlights, and where all the grain is. I generally pull chroma down as well, and I think this film grain is looking spot on. I don't know if that's coming across on YouTube, but it's one of those subtle effects that really sells the film look. And so the next subtle effect that sells the film look is this halation. And I think immediately you see the effects here in the highlights. If I was to toggle that on and off, you can kind of see what it does there. But you also have to be careful because sometimes it leaks into the skin tones, which you can see his skin is getting even more saturated. I don't think it looks bad. I think it actually looks good. But I like to control that on a different level. I don't want that to increase the saturation in skin. So I go to custom here and I turn the mask on and I go ahead and use the source limiter to really only let it affect those really bright spots. Halation is something that just happens from film emulsions. It's a characteristic, and it really has like this red outline around super high contrasty areas. And so we're still kind of getting some of that in his skin tones. And so another option is to just pull the impact down a little bit. And now I think we're in a pretty good spot where this still has a good bit of halation on those high contrast areas, but I don't feel like it's really impacting skin very much. I think it looks really cool and just sells that film look again. And then the next one, to me, really, I have zero reason to use Pro Mist filters or anything like that because of how good this tool is and how much control there is. Immediately, I love how this bloom effect looks. You could go through these presets. I would argue that the 65mm looks really good in this instance, but you can go to custom and again mask mode and adjust things there. But I don't really see a need to mess with settings. It really blooms the highlights. It has a pleasing effect on skin tones here. Just softens it just enough to where it looks really good. We now have film damage, which is something new that's really cool. If you dive into these custom settings, you can completely control the amount of dust and hairs and scratches. And it's really cool because it's populated differently every time. And so if you see me skimming, like, we're not seeing the same thing every time, which is great because your other option was buying overlays where it was the same film scan every single time. And then we have film breath, gate weave. If we're really trying to sell the film look, then we can use those. I won't really dive too much into those details to keep this this video brief, but in the description there will be a link that has details over all of these tools, and it's just an insane amount of tools. That to me is just a really awesome film look that you're able to sell. And now I want to bring us to a little more modern polished look, and so I'll go ahead and add some nodes. It doesn't matter how many nodes you add, just make sure that any corrections that you do outside of this for the most part are before Dehancer plugin. And so choose our camera. This already looks good. If we turn the film off, you could see how dramatic that is. That's kind of what I was talking about, how you can just push so many different looks in such an easy, simple way that they have calculated and dealt with the color science of your camera. It's just really cool. Let's turn the film grain off. And my typical go-to for weddings and things that I don't want to push too hard is to choose one of these film stocks and not do a film print. And so we could walk through a bunch of different film prints or film options, sorry. One that I like a lot is Fujicolor C200. That seems a little purple right now. Fuji Pro 400H is a really good option too. But I think one of my favorites has been this Kodak Aero color. It kind of mutes the greens a little more, which I generally like in these cases. And then what we can do is go over to our primaries and maybe add a little bit of warmth into this image. And I think I want to pull some highlights down, but bring up the gamma, highlights down again. It's a little song and dance there. You see this fly trying to ruin my shot, which he kind of honestly did. I might try to like clone stamp him out for the full film. Something that I often do is add the film grain in a completely separate node outside of these Dehancer tools. and I will use groups, which that can be a whole different topic if you're interested. But I like to control film grain that way because I can turn it off and on for an entire project. This is a look that, I mean, in seconds is dramatic. In a couple minutes, I was able to get this look that I think looks really good. Okay, so I want to show y'all the difference, what you would get from just the LUT from Fujifilm, and really the Dehancer conversion LUT looks similar, and then this Dehancer look. I think this looks good and high end, but it was so easy and it's not pushed or anything. So you don't have to push looks with Dehancer. You can make them look clean and modern, but it just is such an awesome tool that is really easy to use. This look, this will be my last example. You know, I did a film look that was how a movie would be shot, and then I did one that was very modern and looks really good. This last one, I want to do kind of a more modern movie look. And so let's go to our camera. Let's go to Fujifilm X-H2S F-Log2, and we're going to turn this off. And we aren't going to use that. This, you know, would be as if it was shot on film, but we're going to say that it was a digitally shot film, and they either tried to emulate a film print emulation. I don't know if that's redundant, or they actually did film print it. And so let's go to that Kodak 2383, and already we're like, wow, that is a little crunchy here. So I like to always start by just pulling these highlights down. You'll probably find your own method and what works for you, but that tends to work best for me in this case. And so let's pull our gamma up. I'll actually pull these shadows back down, and I'll continue to pull the shadows down, and you can already kind of see here that we have a really unique look. If we just turn this off and on, you can kind of see that it adds a little bit of blues to the shadows, like a good film print emulation does, and it's really pleasing with the skin tones. I actually want to bring some color density back into this. I mean, you can see what it does to those pinks there. It just makes those pop. And obviously my skin tone as well. And let's get to where we're a little closer. That might be a little too much for the skin tones there. Look like a goober. Want to add a little bit of film grain, and I'd probably go with like just this 65mm 50D. It is extremely subtle. Actually, that's my favorite, the 65mm 250D for this look. I think that looks awesome. And I mean, again, just a real quick before and after of just the transform LUT and then the film print emulation. Such an easy way to do a film print emulation that to me looks really good. What else can I say about Dehancer and how easy and awesome of a tool it is? So Dehancer also wanted me to mention another really cool product, which is their iOS app. If you're anything like me, I love to bring my film camera with me, but I don't always have it with me. And so sometimes the phone is the best option. And I actually went on a trip recently and didn't bring a film camera with me. I just used Dehancer Mobile to edit some photos. And so I'm actually gonna walk you through some of these edits here and how cool the iOS app is. Okay, so I'm first gonna go ahead and load up this one photo from my vacation. And so we'll go ahead and click on that. Okay, and now I'm gonna just go ahead and go over to different film stocks. And obviously as we're scrolling through, there are tons of options, but I'm gonna go ahead and look for Portrait 400. I usually like to shoot Portrait 400, and so yeah, I'm looking for that. And there we go. Now it already looks really good, but one thing that I'm gonna go ahead and go over to is the film grain. It seems a little strong for my liking right now, so I'll adjust that down, and that looks pretty good. Yeah, and next we'll go over to the source, which we will adjust our temperature. I want to make it a little more warm. It's a nice beach vacation, so once we do that, then I think it already looks really good. Alright, for this next one, we had like a little flash photography thing, and so I wanted to emulate like instant film look, a point and shoot maybe even. And so one thing that's really cool is if we go to the films, then we can click and see categories. And so I'm gonna go ahead and go over to the instant option, and we will choose the Fujifilm Instax Digital Intermediate. That one seems to look the best to me for this photo. And really there's not much to do. I'm gonna scroll over to the color head and just adjust a few of these things, as you'll see. And let's go over to film grain and zoom in here. It already looks good, but I wanna add just a little more to really make it a little more vibey. So that's looking good. Yeah, let's go over to Halation. And it already is pretty spot on, as you can see. I mean, we can make it a little more dramatic if we wanted to, but I think it already looks really good. Let's go to bloom, and again, the bloom also looks really good. We can amplify it a little bit just to really overemphasize it. You know, sometimes these cheap cameras, like the point and shoot, have like crazy bloom. So I think that looks really cool. Okay, so the last thing I'm gonna show you how to do is how to save a preset. So we can just easily go over to the presets tab there and then press save down at the bottom. We can name it point and shoot. Can't type. And by Aaron. Save. And there you go. And now if you ever wanted to just use that edit, then you can go to your presets, click on it, and there you go. All right, well, if you made it this far, thanks again for sticking around. The details for the giveaway are super simple. Just subscribe, like, and comment your favorite thing about Dehancer on this video, and you'll be entered to win. I will select a random person in the next coming weeks. I'll give you more details on a community post. And just a huge shout out to Dehancer for offering a free license to one of my subscribers. So that'll be it for this video. Again, thank you so much for sticking around, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Later. So, yeah.